welcome back, everybody. It's time for another episode of Living Hope, our weekly journey designed to provide hope, inspiration, and education for those living with pancreatic cancer, sharing the real-life stories of those really affected by this deadly disease and how they deal with it on a daily basis. With our host, who's helped many along the journey, who's been on the journey for a while herself here, Roberta Luna. Hey, Roberta.
Hi, Paul. How are you?
I'm good. Actually, I'm a little stressed out here today. You know, I've got house problems. I got leaks in my kitchen. I got all sorts of craziness here. So I'm trying to stay positive and focused here today in the bigger picture. But the rains came to Southern California and it brought a mess in my house as well here.
Yeah, finally our storm watch is actually a storm, right?
Yeah, right. And maybe that's part of it too. We all get so grumpy when it gets rainy here in Southern California. We need it desperately, but we're not. It's never supposed to rain in paradise here.
No, we're not used to it, and we don't pay for all this rain. We pay a good price to live here in sunny California, right?
Exactly.
So,
isn't that the truth?
We don't expect all this, but glad that you're here, and sorry you're stressed, but we'll try to relieve some of that stress maybe by putting you under the hot seat for a little bit.
Oh, yeah. Today we're going to turn the tables on me. I'm the voice that nobody gets to see here. I'm up in the control room here.
Yeah, well, I think it's about time people get to learn a little bit about you and what you're doing and how this all came about. I get a lot of questions on how this all started, and since I already put Don under the hot seat, I figured might as well get you under there now
Might
too.
as well too. Well, you know, it's an interesting story because obviously OC Talk Radio is primarily a business channel. We do mostly business shows. We've been around for 12 years. There is no real radio station left in Orange County, so we created this online radio station, this live podcasting experience where we record and then turn them into podcasts as well. And never thought about doing a show like this. Never thought about doing a show like this.
I know when Dawn first approached me, she did kind of warn me a little bit and said, I don't know how Paul really feels about this, but apparently you weren't too excited. Or I think you wondered why would you want to interview a pancreatic cancer survivor?
Didn't sound like a positive, upbeat kind of show that our audience would want to listen to. Well, just so we give full disclosure, we're talking about Dawn Camber, who's our public affairs director. She'd previously been the public affairs director for KSBR, the Saddleback Community College radio station. When that got shut down, we brought her in over here to do a part-time thing, bring her public affairs show over here. And her first guest she insisted was Roberta Luna. She'd interviewed you for years and tracked your journey. And I said, what? We've got cancer, we've got Heart Fund, we've got all these big charities. All these people are constantly pestering us to get some play here, and we're mostly a business channel. There isn't any place to put those stories. So I thought, well, public affairs show fits our mandate to be an online radio station, make us feel good, give us some content we can run as filler in between other shows. And I'm thinking big stories, and she's running some big stories. But the first one had to be pancreatic cancer. So tell us, how did you first connect with Dawn? How did she get to be such a passionate spokesman for you and your cause here?
Yeah, it's funny because at that time when I met her, I was actually the media representative for the Orange County affiliate with the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network. And so I had sent a media release out to the station that she was at that time about an angel game that we were doing. Mm-hmm. And just to let them know we were trying to get, coverage and get some awareness out there. And she, I guess, walked by and saw it there and picked it up and gives me a call and asked me, well, if I have you on, can you talk about pancreatic cancer for a half hour?
Yeah, right.
I'm like, I only get a half hour? I mean,
Right.
I can continue to talk about it for quite a while. And she did. We went on and we talked about my situation and then the angel game that was coming up, and later on our first Purple Stride. She was there helping us bring awareness to our first Purple Stride. I came back on the show and we discussed that. So we've had a long, I would probably say 2009, 2010.
Wow.
A long relationship, and just every year she's been very gracious to have us on. I know a couple of times she mentioned she was kind of hesitant to call because she wasn't sure, especially when she got my voicemail, am I still alive or not?
I hate to say it, but yes, she admitted that. She was enthralled with your story, as is everyone who meets you. You are now a 21 year?
I will be, yes.
21-year survivor for a disease that at the time had a 4% survival rate. Now it's up to what, 10 or 11%?
Now we're up 12%.
12%, there you go. So it's tripled in the time that you've been first diagnosed. But you are the survivor everybody points to. You're the one out of 100 that everybody says, see, here's what can happen here. But it has been an amazing journey for you, and in so doing, it really upended your life in many ways. It sounds like, because not only, yes, you were given what could have been a death sentence, but also it gave you sort of a purpose and a passion and a whole new direction for your life. It seems like. Am I overstating that? But
No, it really has. I think sometimes it has become my passion. After losing, in the beginning, 3 family members, my father, grandmother, uncle, and then later on my mother, to pancreatic cancer, I wasn't seeing what I thought was a lot of change. I mean, when my dad was diagnosed in 1998, nothing had changed from when Michael Landon passed away, it seemed like.
Yeah.
Nothing. I mean, still more people were being diagnosed, more people were dying, but the survival rate was not changing at all. So I wanted to speak not so much for myself, because it took me a long time to even tell anybody about my situation. I could talk about my dad and his family, but I wasn't too open on my own. But I didn't want other families to go through what we had been through. I wanted to try to do something. My dad would have wanted me to do something, and that's what drove my passion
Right.
originally.
so your passion became Dawn's passion. It really is your story and your tenacity and your the amazing tale that you tell, I think, that gets you in the door and then keeps wanting to hear more.
Yeah, people, like I said, a lot of times they're hesitant to call because when they get my voicemail,
Yeah,
they're not
right.
sure if I'm still here or not. And to be honest with you, there were a couple of times I really wanted to kind of be mean, I guess, not be mean, but play a trick on her, not really.
Oh,
There's that little
thanks.
devilish in me that was kind of like, well, but I told her, I promised her she would be on my list to be notified. So if she was just getting a voicemail, not to worry, I'm still here.
So when she spun your story, when she said pancreatic cancer, I said, "What else you got?" What's my second choice? What's my third choice here? One, because I never hear anybody talk about it. 2, because I knew very little about it.
Right.
And 3, what I have heard about it is it's very deadly and kind of a depressing topic. Is this something people really want to talk about or hear about? Maybe they need to, but you're always trying to find the uplifting stories, the positive stories here.
It's difficult because, like you say, it's not something most people don't know about pancreatic cancer, or even what their pancreas does
No.
until they are personally affected in some way. So that is something that we need to really try to bring out in the open and just talk about. And it is difficult because it's a horrible disease. It can be very painful, and families don't want to relive that. So I totally get it.
So when she said, "I want to bring her as my first guest," I thought, that doesn't sound like a great start to a series here. Disease not many people know about, hear about, and there's not much hope for. What else have we got here? But then she was very persistent. I said, well, okay, I'll trust your judgment here. And then she told me your story. And I said, well, absolutely, because we're always looking for people stories. We're always looking for human stories. They don't all have to be happy, positive, upbeat stories, but they got to be real. Real people telling real stories here. That's what social media strives for these days, and that's what I think our station in particular, we always say streaming, not screaming. We're trying to tell real stories, not just really sensational stories here, although yours is kind of both. And so I said, okay. And then you came in, and what is it about you? I like you. Everybody likes you or something here. That you got
Well,
this,
not everybody,
you got
but thank
this
you.
weird little gnome personality here. You kind of just worm your way into everybody's heart here. I don't know what it is.
I try. I try at least to leave everybody at least with a smile, if nothing more.
You
And,
really do.
I hope so. I hope so, really.
So you put a different spin on it than I had imagined. I could see a positive side to this story, helping others, and the need. I guess what you exposed to me or explained to me was not just your story, but the story of so many others that aren't being told, and that perked my ear. There's a million people talking about breast cancer, and well, they should. But it's well documented, well researched, people are well aware of it.
Right.
That doesn't mean it always turns out well, but that's a disease that's not struggling for understanding or funds or awareness. But yours really is. Talk about that. Why is pancreatic cancer such a overlooked subject here?
Well, for one, they considered it, which it was hard for me to understand. They do consider it a rare form of cancer, and that's
Yeah.
because when you look at like just the statistics this year, of 65,000 being diagnosed, and out of that, 55,000 around that will die. So it's not the most, like you say, positive. And when we don't want any cancer to take anything away from them because they're all very important. But pancreatic cancer has been just overlooked for such a long time. I mean, to go from 4% when I was diagnosed to now 12. That's really unacceptable to take that long to get there
Yeah.
when others have been able to do it, very quickly. Breast cancer, you have the cute little slogan, save the tatas. Well, what do you come up with? What can you come up with for pancreatic cancer? It's really kind of,
There isn't anything cute attached with that.
no, exactly. Not that any cancer is cute, but I mean, when you can at least put something to it. And
Well, it's a hidden part of your body I didn't even really know I had. I guess I've heard the term, but I didn't really know what it did. And I didn't know where it was, certainly. So I'm not examining my pancreas. I'm not looking at the inside of your body. It's not your face or your breasts or your neck or your nose or something here
Right.
that's more obvious. So I think, I suspect that my reaction was what everybody's reaction was. Not interested. Don't know enough about it. Don't even know what the pancreas is. Don't hear that many people that have it. And it wasn't until you came in that I started really becoming aware of this subject. And that's what intrigued me the most, is talking about something that nobody else is talking about.
yeah, and they don't want to because unfortunately, like I said, the outcome isn't always the best.
Right.
And even those that have died along the way, I still feel their stories are important, even if they didn't end the way we would have wanted them to. They left something behind, and we can't forget that, and we can't forget them. So I think it's really important, even though maybe people don't want to hear those kind of stories. But that's the nice thing about radio, I guess, is you don't have to if you don't want to.
Yeah.
But I think you'll still take away something, even from the ones that we've lost. I mean, there's so many great stories out there.
So many great stories of how they handled it, how they struggled, how they fought, when they decided not to fight anymore here, and the ripple effect that had on families and children and communities and stuff still inspires me. Still, they didn't leave unnoticed without touching somebody along the way. And maybe I'll give you one other aspect of it. You've talked about people who have gone before you, maybe people who died, but who went through clinical trials and proved. Like that one guy came in here one time, you broke down and got upset.
Yeah, his wife was one of our guests, and he had done a clinical trial that had been taken for a number of years.
So, but for their experience, you wouldn't have had the benefit of that drug.
No, I wouldn't for any. I mean, I think I've taken every drug out there for pancreatic cancer, but the problem is that they have to go through a clinical trial before
Yeah.
they're available to us, and that's something that is really important to try to stress as well. Is the clinical trials are very, very important, and that's should be one of the first things we consider doing. But it's difficult. It has to, it's everybody's personal choice, and you have to do what you feel is the best thing for you and your family.
So I'd say there were three things that attracted me to this story that I wasn't aware of until you walked in. One was your own personal passion and story and personality and perkiness or whatever. I don't know. I thought there's a story here. Is it a continuing story? I don't know. What intrigued me about turning it into a continuing story of you and others was, one, it is something that nobody ever thinks about or hears about or knows much about. So I'm always looking for those untapped topics that we can tap. And there's a million shows on, I don't know, business or something here, but I don't think there's any shows, hardly any shows on pancreatic cancer here. So we could make an impact. We could make a mark. We could make a difference. And we could find an audience. A niche that we could serve. And then what I really was intrigued with, this took a little talking on our part, was how could we turn this into a continuing conversation? It wouldn't be negative, it wouldn't be depressing, but it wouldn't also be fake or phony or happy or whatever. It'd be real.
Yeah.
That was what I was looking for. Could people really come on week after week and have a real conversation about something that's really hard to talk about?
And surprisingly, I've not really had issues getting a guest. I
Yeah,
mean, maybe
right.
something has come up where they couldn't come in, but I have like a long waiting list, and trying to get everything in there that we want to accomplish is the most trying part of the whole thing, I think.
That was surprising to me because I thought, well, how many people have come forth and made it your life's mission to talk about your very long, successful battle with this disease? Surely there were others who would do the same, but how many? And would those who lost someone come in and talk? We weren't looking just for happy stories. We were looking for real stories. What people are really going through, how they deal with it, what effect it has on them and their family, what choices they make, how do they handle this, how do they prepare for all the things, including that it may not work here. I mean, there's some very difficult discussions that you've had along the way here with people.
Yeah, they've been hard, but I think what helps, at least what helps me and what I've heard from others, is when you first get diagnosed or when you hear a family member, you think you're alone out there and you think all
Yes.
the feelings that you're feeling are yours and nobody understands that. So I think we've been able to bring to people, even in, like I said, those that didn't end, the stories didn't end the way we would have wanted them to. Somebody can find something to connect in that story. And when you can find a way to connect, then you don't feel so alone and you kind of, it helps you a little bit, even if your fight isn't as long as you would like, it still helps you get over some of those humps.
Right. I got to believe, I've never gone through something as traumatic as this. I can't imagine how I'd react. I don't think anybody can until they go through it. But I got to believe that hearing other people's stories would help.
I think it has, and from the feedback I get most of the time from them, it has helped. Like I said, maybe they haven't always appreciated the subject matters, like when we talked about estate planning and end
Or
of
putting-
life.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but it was something they could still connect with and understand and know that, that is something that at least they won't be alone when that time comes. And they still draw something positive from every show
Because
we've
these
done.
are all the questions you've been through it. These are you, not just yourself, but the work and the groups and the support people that you've had. These are the questions that people have. They, at some point when you're given a diagnosis like that, you may die. I would suspect things get very real. You want to really talk about things. Maybe you don't. I mean, I know there's stages of grief, denial, and anger, and other things. But at some point, you want to really know, what are my chances? What are the best ways to battle this? And if I can't, then what comes next here?
Yeah, I've heard about the 5 stages, and honestly, I didn't go through that with myself. It was like, just what can I do? Because I was not going to be the statistic on the
Yeah, you
dying
always
side.
say that, right.
Yeah, it was, and it wasn't so much why me, but more like why not me? I mean, why would I be any different than anybody else to get pancreatic cancer? And to take that and try to do something positive, it took me, to be perfectly honest, it took me a long time to tell anybody I had pancreatic cancer. I could talk about my dad and his family
Right.
pretty freely and on that end, but for my own situation it was quite different. And I think sometimes that's what fuels me to keep going, is because I feel a little bit guilty that it took me so long to bring my own story out in the public, that I feel like I have some years to make up for when I was silent, when I could have been helping more people who had been diagnosed. And that's maybe not true, but that's just my personal feeling on myself.
So you've talked to a lot of different people on this show, and what surprises me is how open everybody is. They don't hold back. It's very real, sometimes very tearful conversations, sometimes surprisingly funny stories or anecdotal stories or whatever it is. But it's their life and the lives of those people around them that are really affected by this. And I think I see it more as a community conversation than I thought it was before. I thought it was just a very personalized, and tell me your story. Then somebody else can come and tell me your story. It's part of a bigger context of our story somehow.
It's odd to say, but it's a very unique family we become part of.
Yeah.
Maybe because, like I said, with other cancers, you have more knowledge, you know what's going on. With this one, it's a lot more difficult. So we tend to really connect together, whether you want us or not. Once you become part of it, we are a family.
Yeah,
And,
right.
it's easy to share. And I hope the conversations, that's what we wanted to be, a conversation, not a interview. We wanted it to be a conversation. Hopefully that's what we're accomplishing.
And that community surprises me. People die in that community, and yet there are people who still show up at your Purple Stride events, for example, and hold up a poster in memory of my mom or my sister, or my brother, or somebody here. And they keep marching. They keep advocating. They keep coming forward. If we can't save my mom, then maybe we can save the next mom. There's a commitment, not saying everybody, but a lot of these people, it becomes a commitment, a cause that they carry on.
It does, and for a lot of them, sometimes they have to take a break, which is totally understandable. But eventually, they do end up coming back and want to talk about their family or their loved one that they lost, and to do something. But it can be such a horrific disease that a lot of times people they don't want to hear about it. They don't want to deal with it again.
No, or relive it ever again.
And I don't blame them, and I totally understand, because I've felt that way many times before. But there's always something there that pushes me to continue, because I feel like there has to be a voice out there to talk about it, to bring it up, because we can't forget these people that have died from pancreatic cancer.
No.
We just can't. We have to do something.
Well, I like that part of the show where you dedicate it to somebody's memory each and every time here. I think that's a touching tribute. But I'll give you 4 examples just in the in the months we've done this show and the time we've done this show, of a continuing where somebody lost the battle, they died, and yet somebody carries on the fight in their name. One was, is it JB?
Yes.
Big, rough, tough guy who had his friend, just a childhood buddy, very young, athletic. Get this, that's not who you picture somehow. I don't know why you have to be older to get these diseases, but he wasn't. He was a picture of health. And he was so moved at the loss of his friend that it's moved him to make this a permanent part of his life. He serves on your committees. He always out advocating, raising money for this, and probably will be for the rest of his life.
Yeah, he actually started when we're talking about Tyler Neeson, was alive. Tyler invited him to an advocacy day, which when we would go to Washington, D.C. and talk to our representatives about not cutting funds and also, getting more money for research. He started coming, and he'd been doing it for a number of years. And then when Tyler died, he continued, and he continues the fight
And that
in
surprises
Tyler's
me.
name.
I've lost
Yeah.
friends along the way, and I'm sad for them, and I don't forget about my friends, but I don't know that I picked up their cause and made it my cause.
Yeah, it is difficult, like I said, because of it. But Tyler was an amazing young man. I had the opportunity of
Must have
meeting
been,
him
yeah.
and seeing him every year, which was really nice. But he was amazing young man. But we have many people who have lost a loved one, and they continue that fight, and it's just something.
Well, you see it at the Purple Stride event when they all came into Angel Stadium. I was moved. We're putting their pictures up on the Jumbotron like you're going to do again this year. And they're marching for somebody in memory of somebody, so many of them.
Now, most of them, we would want to get more survivors up there, but unfortunately, most of them are the people that we've lost. But again, it's like something we can't forget. We have to remember them, keep their name alive, so that they didn't die in vain, and that maybe something will come out of.
So two
something
more
of
that
it.
struck me. On the other side of it, the young boy. I mean, talk about a very heart-touching story here. I get choked up just thinking about it. This young man, his wife's going to give birth, and he gets pancreatic cancer, and he struggles to stay alive so he can see his son born. And he meets his son and then dies a week or a month later or something here. And his son, who really doesn't, of course, remember meeting his dad, is told his whole life about his father and has taken this up in honor of his father and sort of in a way of reconnecting with his father and learning about the man he never met.
Yeah, he learned all about his dad from everybody else, from family members, from his
Right.
mom. We're talking about Trent, who actually just got his driver's license. I want to congratulate him on that.
Woo-hoo.
But he did go to Advocacy Day with us for a number of years and share his story. And when you hear, he was very young when he used to share his story, and to hear a child come out and talk about losing the dad they never got to meet, it's heart-wrenching.
Yeah, right. And
But
it brings it home. This is real people we're talking about here.
it does, but it does something, at least I think, positive, in that, for one, we all know his dad through the stories that we've heard.
Right.
And it just keeps his memory alive, and something important that needs to be done.
And then, dare I say, the wildest one. I can't think of any other word but wild. Is a couple. They each lose their seniors. They each lose a spouse. The woman loses her husband. The man loses his wife to pancreatic cancer. And then they go out at some point when the grieving is done and the living must continue. They go out and go on a dating app to see if they can find somebody else to share what's left of their life, and run into each other by pure happenstance or maybe divine design, I don't know, as my wife would say here. And rather than just being marveled at, wow, you lost your wife to pancreas? You lost your husband to pancreas? What are the odds of that? They get married and make it part of their new life together to talk about their previous spouses. That seems wild to me.
Yeah, I think it's an amazing story, because I don't hear that very often. And I was even surprised to learn how they met. I assumed they met in a support group. So to learn that they met on a dating app really surprised me as
Yeah.
well. But
All
like
the
I said,
people you could meet. I meet someone who else lost their, and that wasn't in their profile or anything.
no,
here.
not
Yeah.
at all. It just was, and I don't believe, things happen for a reason. I don't think that's just coincidence. Everything
Right.
happens for a reason, and they were able to take the love that they had for their previous spouse and still keep that memory alive, but continue a life on their own and a love in their own. And it's really amazing to watch. You can tell they're very deeply in love, and they have both said that had they known each other's spouses, they probably would have been friends.
Yeah,
And I think that's
right.
really amazing and says a lot. And I wish others who, have lost somebody and go into a second relationship can really take something
That
back
would be
from
hard.
that.
I'm not
That's-
sure I'd want to hear about somebody else's ex-husband here all the time in our new relationship here. But they've made it a part of their lives where they both continue to keep those memories alive and share them with the world.
And they do, and they actually have a team for Purple Stride where they're honoring both of their spouses. So I think that's totally amazing.
I think it's amazing. Well, I think this has been an amazing journey. I look forward to it each and every week. I tell people about it all the time. Of all the shows we've produced over the last 10, 12 years, this one's probably touched me among the most here. And I think it's a powerful example of what this can be. Storytelling at its best, and the healing power of sharing and telling stories there.
I think so too, and I appreciate you and Don giving us this opportunity, because it wouldn't have happened had you not allowed me to share my journey, as well as the others that we come across. And it's not just like patients and caregivers, but researchers, doctors, nurses.
Yeah.
We've had a chemo nurse on. We want to reach out to anybody who's had the slightest connection with pancreatic cancer, whatever it is, just to hear your story and your journey and how you've handled it and what you've done, because it's important to all of us as a survivor. I mean, I'm patient. My team has been very important. My medical team has been very important to me. So we want to give a shout out to all those. And just, feel free to share your story. Either contact the station here, or you can email me at livinghope2055@outlook.com. And we'd love to share your journey as well.
Well, I'm not just saying this because you got me on the hot seat. I am so glad that we found you. This has been a joy to produce. It's totally out of sync with the normal kind of serious business shows we put together, but I think it's our mission to be a community voice, not just a business voice. And it's a powerful story that needs to be told, that wasn't being shared up until this point. And I think by telling it, I hope that we're helping others.
I hope so too. And just to be an inspiration, or let somebody know you're not alone and there is someplace you can go. So like I said, reach out, share your journey with us. And pancreatic cancer is something we need to keep in the forefront and need to keep out there, so we can include or increase.
And that's hard to do because there's a lot of noise, there's a lot of distraction. I'm telling you about I'm thinking about my house and my flood and all the other things that are going in here. We get so easily distracted, and so often we think, there's a bigger picture here.
Yeah.
We need to take a look at it once in a while. This does that. Well, thank you. I look forward to any more hope of where we're headed. You got so many interesting guests lined up here.
One of the questions I wanted to ask you was, what do you want to see us doing on the show? What's some episodes you would like to see us do?
I'd like to see more about the research. I love the stories, but I'm intrigued what comes next. Like you were talking about, you had Aggie Hirschberg on, and she's hinting at there might be a blood test coming here. Some of these game-changing things that would, because the gain that's been made from 4% to 12% seems mostly to have been greater awareness. People catch it earlier, which is hard to do because the pancreas is inside your body and it doesn't give off very obvious signals something's wrong. An itch or a pain or something could be easily explained into something else here. So it seems like, unless I'm wrong, that most of the gain in survival rate has been just by pushing the story out there. Pay attention, don't ignore these things, and maybe you can get to it earlier when it's still treatable. And that's been one of the problems with pancreatic cancer. By the time you discover it, they've ruled out everything else, and it's probably gone pretty far along here.
Yeah, because it's not one of those things they can detect usually by just pushing
Feel a
on your
lump or
body.
something.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
something that you have to have some symptoms, and unfortunately they're so generalized. It's usually thought of, hernias or gallstones or ulcers, because it's
Rashes even and stuff.
yeah, you can get a rash. Itching is now they're seeing some.
Yes.
My mom had excessive itching.
So you're just going to explain that away 100 ways until it's too late, then finally, or overlook it altogether.
Yeah, you will, because nobody knows what the pancreas does until it stops doing what it's supposed to be doing.
Yeah, right. So I would like to hear more about the potential breakthroughs like that. I know these are a long time in coming, but it seems like there's a couple on the horizon that might pop up, that being one of them.
Yeah, we have some that we're looking at doing. We're talking about the blood tests that they have out there. We have somebody that will be coming on, just trying to work around their schedule so we can get them in here. But
And clinical trials, because I think that's the first thing I'm a man, so okay, give me everything you got. I'm going to be scientific about it. Let's go down the exhaustive list. Let's try everything. Or a lot of people are going to try everything. But I wouldn't even know where to start.
Well, the clinical trials are very important, like I said, because that's the only way we get our treatments is to go through the clinical trials. With pancreatic cancer, you'll never get a placebo, which a lot of people are concerned about getting a placebo. You will at least get the standard of care, whatever is happening now, or the new drug. So it's something really important to consider. And if your doctor's not making you aware of it, You can either go to pancan.org and get the information, or you can go to Hirschberg, which is pancreatic.org, and get information. So, and there's a lot of other great, foundations out there. Let's Win has been really awesome and has a lot going on too. So.
Yeah, I'd like to hear more from. I think that's one of the things that always distresses me about all diseases, disorders, problems that are out there. There's so many people working on their own sort of scheme, but I don't see a sort of united effort sometimes in these things. So the more we can unite the overall community across the country and create some cross conversation, I think that'll help too.
Yeah, and a lot of these foundations I mentioned, are working together, and they're members of the, if I get this right, the Pancreatic Cancer Coalition, which is a group of worldwide, even in the United Kingdom and other countries, that are working together, so sharing information. And that is very important, because that is the only way that we're going to find a cure, or at least early detection, is by sharing the information
So
out
I'd
there.
like to hear more stories of what's happening around the world, not just what's happening locally here in our community here.
Well, we've
So-
got them all on the waiting list, so we just need to get them in here.
Okay. Well, I think this is an ongoing conversation. Until there's a cure, I think there's a conversation to be had here. And I think that you've shown us a way. I think this is a conversation. This is a medium that can be used sort of like a giant group therapy. Everybody gets together virtually and shares stories and learns from each other.
Well, hopefully, like I said, if we can give just a little bit of inspiration out there, hope, and just let anybody know who's going through the fight, you're not alone. We all are here to help any way we can.
Well, I'm grateful you let me guide the discussion, because I'm uncomfortable being interviewed. I'm only good at interviewing others. So
Well, this isn't supposed to be an interview; it's a conversation.
that's right. But I was afraid to just sit back and say, "Okay, give me your best shot here."
No, like I said, we want people to be comfortable. We want to maybe start out with questions, but let them go where they want to go. What
Yeah.
do they want to talk about? I want to give them their, what
You've
is it,
done an
15 minutes
excellent-
of fame? Is
Yeah,
that what it is?
You've done an excellent
So-
job at that. Really do. I think you get people feeling very comfortable, and they've been very open in what they're sharing, and I'm sure they will continue to be. So I know this sounds like a giant praise fest, but I'm telling you, this has been a joy in my life, and I think it's a joy to everybody and a help to everybody who listens. So I'm excited to see where this journey goes here.
I am too, and I didn't realize we're going to be approaching. Well, we'll be in our second year, so it's kind of amazing. I didn't
I
really know
look
where
forward
this
to
was
our
going to
fourth
go.
and fifth and beyond here. So,
There you go.
all right, thanks. Take us out.
Thank you. And again, I wanted to dedicate this episode of Living Hope to Don Camber and Paul Roberts, because without their knowledge and giving me this opportunity to share all these stories, it wouldn't happen. So thank you very much for both of you for being there and allowing me this opportunity.
Thank you. Well, there you have it. Some of the reasons I get excited each and every week to tune in. I hope you will too. And bring along somebody who needs help, or somebody who's going through the journey. And if you have somebody who really needs more than just a talk or a story, there are resources out there. One of them you can contact is Patient Services at 877-2-PANCAN. That's 877-2-PANCAN for the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network. For the OC Talk Radio Network, I'm Paul Roberts, thanking you for joining us and hoping you'll be back again as we share more living hope from our studios here at the University of California, Irvine's Beale Applied Innovation Center.